It has begun.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
And away we go. Here we are on a cold November's morn. Elvis Presley here. Thank you very much. Coffee. You see, this is pop culture, not politics. That's the thing that we must get through our heads. Today's show is brought to you by no one. Frozen Dystopia ahead. The title of the show is Collapse to Dystopia, Idiocy. 17 November 21. I don't have 0 playbacks, but it says we're live. Title card that was brought you here is something that looks like that. Not too far from what reality is going to be like in a very short period of time. So, let's look at that again. Reality. I ought to screen capture that. That's just too good to be true. Anyway, welcome to my nightmare.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
So, let's just get right into the news. The news is nothing. Absolutely nothing. A bunch of cartoon characters talking, saying nothing in speech bubbles. And it, I looked, I searched. Believe me, I searched. I even searched deeper than normal. I looked down, I scrolled down to Google News and, all that stuff. I even noticed some local news where they were giving like $23 million to like this town that I live on the outskirts of. It has a rail line and stuff that goes to a major city and stuff, but they were talking about doing something like fixing the buses and the train station itself, which is absolutely a useless place because you can get a one-way ride out or a one-way ride in, but you can't get a same day. You can't commute like to the next city over, which is a much bigger city, which would be a great place to go for shopping or dining and things like that. But they always managed to have somebody who's somehow connected with automobiles, right? And so they always it was statewide, federal, and local that shoots down any possibility of allowing certain smaller towns to have railway commuter rail service. The only place it exists in places that it had existed, and was grandfathered in. Yeah. And even in many of those places, they'll take down the number of trains and they'll use the excuse of passenger users have gone down. But the fact of the matter is, they'll be getting like $23 million grants and stuff. So it's immaterial. What are you going to do with that money? So what? If your usage is down, keep the train lines open and it'll come back. It's cyclical. And if people know there's a train, they'll use it. And you got $23 million from the government anyway. Anyway, it's kind of a weird game that's being played. But like I say, it doesn't really matter. The title of this show, again, is Collapse to Dystopia. Like I said, the Great Reset is already here. Now, before we get into anything really that crazy, let's...
The Weather Watch Forecast.
And as you can see, we have the satellite view in motion from just, fairly recently, within the past hour or two. And you can see that the clouds have thinned out from yesterday in the former United States. Looks like a few clouds are hitting the southern keys of Florida and the tip of Florida. And there's something going over the panhandle of Texas for all you darlings out there. and it's working its way over the Great Lakes. There may be some Great Lake effect snow, on the eastern shores of the Great Lakes. But for the most part, it looks like you're just going to see some clouds, along that motion, a swath of light clouds. I say, whenever you can see the lights, the lights of the cities through the clouds, there's no notable precipitation coming down. Looks like there's a little activity building up down south in a couple areas, but nothing to get crazy about. Canada's getting their snow, but they always get snow. And the Pacific Northwest is cold, and I understand there's been some areas that had a little bit of flooding there. But again, it's been raining in the Pacific Northwest as far back as we know. And the operative word there, as we know. So this is a live satellite view. You'll only see that on Tony Caravan Live.
The Weather Watch forecast.
And welcome back to the show that never ends. Remember, the sun is the giver of light and heat and controls the climate of the earth. And affects our magnetic field and helps shield the solar system from cosmic rays, just as our own magnetic field, which is weakening, shields us from solar rays and cosmic rays as well. And what's happening now under this weakened magnetic field is that we're starting to see more of this kind of activity. So we can switch up here to, not move me. Let's try to, I'll tell you. Technology in the year 2021 is laughable. And I'll get into something to just demonstrate, just to talk about that. People can't grasp the year. And because they got a few devices that are somewhat, in their mind, magical or high tech, the reality is we've de-evolved. Coffee's nice and hot. As you can see, this is the latest from the Spanish site, which I get my volcano news from for La Palma, as opposed to these other sites that have gotten it wrong and don't even know where the hell La Palma is. The volcano eruption has been active now for almost 2 years, beginning on the 19th of September. Sadly, a volunteer worker was killed trying to clean volcanic ash, which has become a nightmare on that island. The surface area of the lava flow covers over 1,043 hectares. That's a lot. Put it that way. And more than 1,460 buildings have been severely damaged by the lava flow. Not to mention roads that have just covered over. And we've seen that happen like when we were watching the Hawaiian volcano go off. It's like, this is like molten rock. And when it hardens, it's like rock. So you kind of got to get the old, really heavy-duty equipment out there to, jackhammer this stuff out of the way. New lava headland formed in Atlantic Ocean off Los Guerres Beach next to the original delta. Around 7,000 of the island's 85,000 residents have been evacuated. And like I have been saying all along, if you look at this photo, you can see volcanic ash going up into the atmosphere, which is only adding to the cooling effect of all of volcanic activity that's going on around the world. And so anyone that tries to tell you that this earth is somehow getting hotter or whatever is just out of touch with reality, because this is where we're headed. But I just wanted to take you to a shot I found from a video. There's a lot of people restoring videos And, this is from 1923, so it's roughly almost 100 years ago. And this is a beach day. It's colorized and restored in Paris, in France. Okay. So you could see those grand hotels up there on the, the cliffs, I guess. And there's one that's you can't really see. It has like kind of a pointed top on it there at the ocean's edge. And of course, you don't see a lot of bikinis there in 1923, but people enjoying themselves. And if you looked at the video, which you could find this video on YouTube, you'll see some women out there showing some skin and fashion, and people at cafes. And like I say, there's all these people that they were born, in the 90s, the late 90s, or some people born in the 2000s who are like 21 years old. They're old enough to have a drink, And they just don't understand that 100 years ago, people were living, in many cases in the lap of luxury. Now, in America, 100 years ago, there were people using outhouses. Yeah, pretty crazy, But what I'm trying to get at here is that time, civilization, is de-evolving in many ways, and that thinking that we are the crowning achievement, of life on this planet is not only like narcissistic, egocentric, and, wrong, but it's not proven when you look into, back into the historical records that we do have, the archaeological finds that we have found. And the idea that, the camera and movies have been around long enough to have captured things, from 100 to like 150 years ago. I showed you the picture of Lincoln without his beard and hat. He was actually a pretty decent, dashing looking guy. So for those following Bitcoin, not such good news. It looks like it's down again. Almost 2% again. So we're talking 59 now. Remember, we're up to 66. It was like 666 and change. So we're looking at basically it's gone down $7,000 per Bitcoin since last week, about a week ago or so. So that kind of fluctuation, I don't know. There's all these people thinking Bitcoin is like going to be the savior of, the freedom-loving people, but it's not, because, it's just not, it's too unstable. And even if it were to drop, excuse me, even if it were to drop, say, another $9,000, that's 50 grand of Bitcoin. It's still too high for, the average person to buy into it. So like the best you could do is like, if you wanted to get into Bitcoin, I think there are apps, and there are like trading areas, and I'm not going to turn you on to that because this isn't a financial show and I don't give financial advice. But I believe there are places where you can deal with fractional amounts of this, and so you can give and purchase fractional amounts, and that'd be the only way to get into Bitcoin. So if you thought Bitcoin was going to go up to 143,000, like one of those Wall Streeters said, I guess you could buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, and so that if Bitcoin were, if it goes down to say, 50,000 or less than 50,000, and then you may be able to treble that 1,000. So you might, if you put 1,000 in, you might be able to get 3,000 if indeed it went that high. But if it continued to go low, you just lose your money. And, just look at that, look at the chart. So it's crazy. So I don't know. I think it would have been great to have bought into Bitcoin when it was $100, and I regret not buying a couple of Bitcoin, spend $1,000 or $300 years ago. But at this point, it's a rich man's game, right? Like everything else. So, yeah, 100 years ago, people were doing okay in certain areas, but it's like today, I put this up because we're getting to that time of year, I don't know if they show this anymore. Wasn't there some problem where they felt this was like there was something politically incorrect about the about this? This was like didn't a dentist help this guy? This was that Rudolph the show. I don't know. I always thought this was, I mean, as a kid, it was something you watch every year, kids, I don't think kids today are interested in that kind of stuff or whatever. But I remember there was some weird controversy and it had to do with some social stuff of the day, which is like, just further idiocy, right? I don't know. Kind of crazy. But it's the holiday season. Whoop-dee-doo. I don't know if my scale's right, but it's like, I was saying, I've been trying to take off like the last 15 pounds and stuff, but it's like I almost took off like 5 of them, already. So it's like 10 to go if today I don't, go crazy. So that's that. Let's look at the music feature now. And you can see that's me. See the soul patch? Anyway, that's me wearing a beret. That's Tony Caravan 8 tracks. And I have a ton of those sitting here at the house. It's still for sale on Amazon. And I think it's digitally, you could get it digitally too. But this isn't the greatest image. In fact, I pulled this from Amazon because I wanted to make sure it was still on Amazon. So it's going to get a little bit blurry if I enlarge it too much. But the key is this is not bad. And I wouldn't necessarily, I'd like to give these CDs out. I have a ton of them. And I would, but it's the shipping that's the problem. Now, there's a couple of songs on, this is dated. This is like, there's actually a song on there called 2016. So it's a dated, it's 5 years old. And, but, it's interesting. I have the amendments 1 and 4 on there. So I had the foresight to know that the amendments were not being adhered to. Trying to Catch the Wind is not really that great a song. But for some reason, I guess the titles, people have confused it maybe with a Donovan song. But the good tunes, that there are two classic songs on this 8-track. It's not an 8-track. It's just me trying to be cute and calling it 8 tracks, since it's only 8 tracks, music tracks. And so I just used the 8-track design for the sake of that. I thought it was clever. Be that as it may, the EYKIW is, if you look above the artwork, is the first letters of Everything You Know Is Wrong. Okay? That song is a great song and way ahead of its time. Because it was actually, that was one of the first songs that I actually recorded, multi-track recorded myself. And I did that several years. In fact, I think back in 2008 maybe, or something like that. So that's on there. That was one of my original 8-track recordings. It's not the first song I recorded. And I don't know why I didn't put it on it, but I recorded a song called the Pottsville Song back in the 90s, which was my first song that ever got played on the radio. But but also on here is the worst Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa song ever written or sung. And that, that makes the whole thing worthwhile. So, you could get the album. You can see the on-air light there is from this spot, prior to the current set we have. So I've been doing this for a long time in this location. But I would recommend getting a copy of Everything You Know Is Wrong, the EYKIW, or since it's the holiday season, the worst Christmas song, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa song ever written or sung. And it is a holiday classic, and it does get played at places. And I'm going to be featuring some of my music intermixed here, because why not? Do you know what I mean? In fact, tomorrow I may list this song. And give you a little teaser there. I'm trying to see if I have a copy of the worst. Here's Everything You Know from 2014. But I'm going to have to skip ahead to give you a feel for what that song sounds like.
Obsessed culture of pseudo-realities that change like channels and flow like web pages.
Now I'm going to jump ahead.
Higher fuel bills, higher credit card bills, higher healthcare bills. You get the picture. In effect, it costs more to live than the average patient can.
So that's EYKIW, which I highly recommend you get a copy of. Way ahead of its time, even though I mentioned the year in there, which is weird. And like I say, and there's a song on here actually called 2016. But I don't see a copy of my Christmas song. So let's see if we see Tony Caravan anywhere there in the mix here. It seems odd. I would not have my own Christmas song. I'm looking. Oh, in yesterday's feature, the Payolas, that's this song. Remember I featured that song? I said it was the best song, Christmas song. See, you can only play a little bit, because then they give you a copyright strike. Let's see if I can get just to the intro. This is a great fucking song. That's the spot I want, right here. So let's see. Anyway, that's that tune. I can't believe I don't have my own song on here. In my own Christmas mix. Weird. How could I not? Songs, shows. Show, current. Rock party. No.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
All right. Well, anyway, that's that. So, yeah, he needed his tooth out too. Countdown to see if that's going to happen to me. What kind of excuse they're going to make. So, anyway, let's get into this show. So, like I say, again, the title that may or may not have brought you here. Collapse the Dystopia, Idiocy, 17 November 21. And the title card is just an image, no particular wording on it. Everything frozen over. Just all hell breaking loose. And that's pretty much what we're talking about. You know? And for some reason, we're missing a piece of artwork. What happened to it? Let's see. Where is it? You know what I'm talking about? Underneath the then what? We used to have something there, right? And it somehow disappeared. What was there? Does anyone remember? It wasn't game over. Right? What was it? You don't know what you don't know. There is something missing. Game over wasn't there. Right? We didn't have this void over to the, stage right, your left, underneath the then what girl with the hoodie. There would have been something. Just notice that. What was there? It vanished somehow. It's crazy. What was it? It would have been one of the sayings from one of my shirts. So we know we have game over in the hat, game over there. Everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. Then what? Freedom is fun. Right? What else do we talk about on this show? And how could it have vanished? Just vanished. I'm looking at music feature. There it is. Daily photo. Howard Beale somehow vanished. Bring the title card back. All right, here I am, in between, sandwiched in between. So let's get into this. So how is it possible, as I pour my coffee, that they just had a climate summit, where they're talking about, just nonsense, like the earth is heating up and it's getting hotter and past the tipping point and floods and all these things. Ocean rise, while people like Obama and all these other billionaires have oceanfront property. I mean, the hypocrisy of it all. When in reality, we know that we have, ash being thrown into the sky. We know our magnetic field is weak. We've just witnessed a couple weeks ago, back-to-back CMEs and solar flare activity, and that the Earth is actually cooling. And I didn't mention my own weather when I brought up the weather before, but, it's like we're talking serious cold. And we're going to have, today's going to be a day in the mid-Atlantic states and parts of the U.S. It's going to get up into the low to mid 60s. And overnight it'll be fairly mild. And tomorrow's not going to be that bad because the overnight's going to be mild. But tomorrow night it gets back down to 30 below freezing, and then we're back into it. 27 at night, Friday night, and the weekend looks like it's going to be, wintry weather. And you get those days. They call them, it's like in January you'll get one too. I said that yesterday. You get a January thaw, but it's 36 degrees outside right now. 36 frickin' degrees. So what? It's going to pop up for a couple hours in the afternoon. We might hit 60 something. You know what I mean? That's not global warming. That's just it happens. That's how it is. It's always happened. You should You should like look at the record books and see, and you'll see like in such and such a year it was 88 degrees on this day, stuff like that. There are various convergence of events that cause different climate things in certain areas, and excuse me. I mean, most of what controls the weather and the fate of civilization is basically cyclical. It's not like happenstance. It's not caused by humanity. It's not caused by 0.004 CO2 or any of that garbage. It's cycles. It's grand cycles. And, and depending on what you consider a grand cycle, and your age, they call it's like transcendence. It's the idea that a child sees a day as a long time or a week as, wow, that's a real long time because you've only been on this planet for so long. But when you're older and you've been on the planet for 80 years, a day just almost just zips by because it's such a small fraction of time compared to the amount of days that you have lived. See, it's a psychological thing. And, and it's the same with psychology and, of course, mind games on the bioelectric brain that the school system and the media plays on you. And it's all driven by this corporatocracy. There's no such thing as politics or politicians or governments anymore. We do live in a corporatocracy. And they don't care that this picture I have on the screen, right, that's going to be the outcome of their folly, not ours, right? It's like I was explaining yesterday. The poor, they're giving all this money to the poor, right? The poor aren't contributing to in other words, more than half the population of the United States isn't really using and contributing to so-called alleged, excuse me, early in the morning, 6:10 a.m., CO2, which is just a trace gas, which to this date, no one seems to want to tell anybody that it is that. It's so dry. My bedroom, I have something that tells the humidity. And I hate to put this on my fingers, but I'm going to. This is like one of these emergency creams. And it has a little bit of a smell to it, and I hate that because I'm not allergic to to smells or anything, but I just don't like smelly stuff, But the thing about this particular cream, hand cream, is what it is that it does seem to get deep into the pores. And on a day like today, what I was saying is that the humidity last night in my bedroom dipped to was it 32 or it was at least 30, around 34. Might have even gone to 32. Now remember, like mold and mildew and stuff like that, between 35 and 50, they recommend. That's like if you have that kind of humidity in a basement or something, you're not going to have any mold problems or anything like that. And likewise, things like spiders and certain bugs that require, that get their moisture, from that humidity or, whatever that builds up, that killed, they just wither away because they have no way of drinking moisture. They get no moisture from anything. So I'm hoping this stuff is still good because what it's supposed to do, I'm putting it on my hands here because they're just dry as a bone, and that's what it's like when it gets cold like this, which is good because I think one of these days, and I'm not going to touch that. So I say, I hope this soaks in before I touch my mouse or anything yet. I want to make sure it just gets into the skin. But one of these days, you don't know what song that's from. It's from a Ghana-Wana Land song. Tomorrow, actually, is a 90% chance of rain. and it's going to be like 59 degrees, so it's not going to be snow. Then it's like 30 overnight, which means that rain, if that soaks up on sidewalks and puddles and pools, that it's going to be, a sheet of ice. So driving's going to be really bad tomorrow night, not tonight. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. You get these things, but then you got an ice storm. Because we're not talking freezing, we're talking 30 degrees. That's 2 degrees. 0 degrees Celsius for you folks. That's below 0 degrees Celsius, below freezing. And for Fahrenheit folk, that's 30 degrees, 2 degrees below freezing. Meaning not so nice. But see, what I like about it being leading up to that, the humidity being so low, is that with a leaky roof type of situation that I'm dealing with. In other words, the humidity's so low that as the rain comes up, there's all this, everything is dried out. So it would take like several days of rain to really get the place damp and, musty in that regard. And so I can deal with 1 day of rain because the humidity's below 30. Like I say, most things can't live below 40 even, really. That's kind of one of the thresholds I used to go by. I see they've moved it up, like they go from 35 to 50. Thank you very much. Yeah, today I look like Elvis a little, I guess. Well, I don't look like Elvis, but I mean, it's the Elvis do. So it seems. I don't really spend a lot of time grooming myself. I just kind of get up, splash a lot, wash my face, then splash, shave. Kind of, but you can see I've got the old Brillo pad thing going on. This resveratrol and this life extension, life reversal stuff that I've been experimenting with for a number of years is working. It just takes like years off your life. There's people I went to school with that if you saw me next to them, you'd say, who's that? That guy's an old man, right? And you look at me and you'd go like, well, he's no spring chicken, but he's not as old as that guy, right? It's pretty crazy. It must be freaky to people. But they don't watch anyway, so it doesn't matter. So the people that would be freaked out aren't freaked out. Teeth, white. So yeah, it is possible to turn back aging process. And like I say, the billionaires are doing it. I'm not a billionaire. I just kind of know what the heck they're doing, so I got kind of onto them. Doesn't keep me from having other health issues because they're bombarding us with all kinds of stuff. It's hard to survive. And inevitably, we're all heading for what you see on the screen. And it's man's idiocy that's allowed this to happen. And woman's. Probably woman's more than man's. Because, a lot of men just follow women, It's like they're on their tail, right? Things you do for a woman, right? At least people that live in that world. Whatever new world it is. But that gets back to this idea I'm trying to tell you about and why I brought up that French picture from, 100 years ago. Not that one. What was that one? Oh, yeah, it was here. I could have actually left it there. Is that, people are people. People lived, they lived the way they live. They did the same things, life is life and you just want to be happy and people just want to, today I don't know what the motivation of some people is. Like you would think that the whole purpose of life is love, right? Quality of life and love. I mean, for some people, that's like, if there's nobody watching, but I mean, those that were watching, that would be like a point to turn off now. They don't even want to hear that word. But the idea is that, well, like what? Okay, what you're seeing on the screen, this frozen wasteland, disaster, is where we're headed in our lifetime, right? According to a lot of serious, if you put all the papers, the scientific journals together over the last couple decades and connect the dots, so to speak. In other words, if you really do your due diligence and research, things like that Ben Davidson has done and has produced videos on, check him out, suspiciousobservers.org, and check out his catastrophe series or whatever he calls it. And then or watch, Doug Vogt at the Diehold Foundation, his channel on YouTube. And he takes a different tact because he's tying it into like biblical references, but not like what you think of. It's more into the concept of it's actually a far out concept when you really get into it. Like the concept, his Diehold is that the early Hebrews basically were following, this computer, this Diehold, right? And, were led, and this thing existed in some cave, and it's crazy. But everything he says, is, he documents. The man has written many books. You got to watch some of his videos, and at face value, you gotta go, this is out there. But then once you watch it, and like I said, he's not the greatest presenter of his own material, so it's almost like you should buy his books. But if you watch his videos and you could put up with, he makes some mistakes when he's presenting his own stuff. I don't mean factual mistakes. I mean, in a way, it's like a guy presenting a PowerPoint presentation is how he presents it. I just mean he reads it wrong sometimes or whatever. But you can't blame him. But anyway, so I put this stuff you can't really tell on the screen now. But it's it's not really, hasn't really soaked in. So I'm wondering if it's too old, if it's lost that factor, that it had at one point. Yeah. Because by now, usually it would have just vanished. So it's like a film. I've had this stuff sitting here for a couple of years because I just don't use it. But today it was like my back of my hands were getting itchy, and darn it. I don't like lotions and potions and stuff like that as a rule. And I certainly, and things that have a scent to them, it's like, no. The only scent I really like, and that's why this holiday season is, I like the smell of pine, like Christmas tree pine, and like that apple cinnamon type of candle or evergreen candles that sometimes you could get at Walmart or certain places around this time of year for $1. When I see that, I buy 4 or 5 of those things up, especially the evergreen, right? I mean, I wish, and it's too late. I mean, I'd love to do it. I wish I had a couple evergreen trees. If I had the money, I just don't have the money, I sweat out every month, I'm just because I'm so close to the wire. But it's I would like to, you know how some people, like the real environmentalist tree hugger type of people, buy a Christmas tree that they plant, they use it and then they plant it. Well, I'd like to buy one of those, and I wouldn't even put it in the house. I have no space in here for it, really. I would actually just buy it and plant it in my backyard. I'd love to have an evergreen, and I know where I would put it. I'd put it right by my back window, and then I'd put like solar lights on it, so it would be it could be a Christmas tree. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it would be evergreen. And every time I'd go out there, I'd be able to have that smell. And it would be living. I'd like to have a couple of them. Really. And so that would be the thing, to buy one that's already grown and has some kind of, bulb, root bulb on it that's going to survive. So, maybe next year. I don't know. Certainly not this year. I just don't have any cash at all. I don't know how much this mouth is going to cost me. And the damage that dentist did to me, has the other side hurting. And I think there's some cavity over there that they like kind of grind it open with this cleaning that I 17 times told them I didn't want. Stop. No. Yeah, my mouth was basically raped by this dentist. There's a place I could call and report them, but I haven't. Yeah. I'm kind of waiting to see how this whole thing ends, right, before I do it, And also, I don't want to necessarily ruin somebody's life, but I think I mentioned this before. There's a certain moral, ethical obligation you have that if someone's done something that's wrong, and there's a good possibility that they could continue committing that wrong onto other innocent people, that you have an obligation to report them, right? To prevent that. That's like, seeing something that's a potential crime that's going to occur. It's like you have a kind of a moral, ethical obligation to try to not necessarily intervene because you could get yourself harmed or killed, but to somehow get the authorities involved and say, hey, look, there's a potential here, Because because otherwise, how do you live with yourself if that, when the next person gets victimized? And I was definitely a victim of this particular charlatan who was just out to make a buck. So I don't know. We'll see how that all ends up. But that's off topic. That's more just like this.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And we don't want to deal with that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. This show is probably...
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
For some people, but, we cover so many topics. And, we are at about, 350 some shows that... because I mean, this particular type of program, I started producing these last year, studio producing them. And then once I hit some point in January, I decided to go live because I've said this before. The studio productions were it was like about 6 hours of my day in order to put this out. And I wasn't getting paid to do it. So, and they were 6 hours of my waking hours. It's like the way, it's like the concept of wage slavery that like some people like don't understand. Like, they think it's like a socialist type of mentality, what I'm about to say. But, you got to hear it out to understand what I'm trying to say. In other words, you have a job and you work 9 to 5. 40 hours a week. The wage slave. The salaried worker, the upper management, that's a whole different world. I'm not talking about that. I mean, those people are just, well, I don't know. They're on their own head trip. But, so you give your best hours of your life, right? The sunny daytime, waking hours, when you're most alert, after a good night's sleep. Hopefully you had a good night's sleep. And you go and you give these hours to do some wage slave job, because you basically live from paycheck to paycheck, more or less. Right? And so you're just paying your bills. And your reward for doing that is that on Friday night or Saturday night, you might have a little bit left over from your bills, or if you have a credit card, you could go out and you can party with your friends, so to speak, or at least you used to before lockdowns and all this crazy stuff, And, think about that. It's that's why I call it wage slavery, right? I have a song, and again, every time I go here and look for something, I can never find it. Yeah, wage slaves. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, I do have it here. Okay. Let me just get this forward. Let's see if I get. Some of my intros, I don't know. I haven't heard these songs in so long.
Wage slave.
Yeah, here we go. Okay.
You are a wage slave. You are a serf. You work your whole life.
You get it? That's one of my songs. That's beat poetry. All right.
Just to pay the bills.
See, it makes you wonder why I'm not, you really have to discover my music, or beat poetry, whatever you want to call it. I mean, some of it is very melodic and musical, but other of it is like that. It's just beat poetry there's a beat that I've created, and I do all the music. And then I get into this. But so you're a wage slave, right? You work your whole life and you just pay the bills. And when it's all over, you're lucky if you get Social Security and live at the poverty level or something. And that's it. You gave your whole life for what? So that you could maybe have a couple of happy hours and, whatever. Most people get divorced so that maybe you can have like a little love interlude, but that falls apart. And then you have this nightmare of custody battle if you have a kid, and this, that, the other, and life and the struggle. And, it's insane. It's no way to live. Right? And that's how most people live. Right? And they don't see it that way. And they go, well, what else would you do? Well, you would basically get my book, In fact, both of these books, I believe, have it in it. But like this one here, I'm also getting ready with some of this stuff. Like, we wish you a Merry Christmas. All right. And so we'll do like a Christmas sing-along show at some point. I need to get that stuff out. But this is my book, Then What, which is for sale now on Amazon. This even has this shows you how long this tooth thing has been an issue. Look at that, was like a thing. I put some of the morning show cards in here from when this just shows you back. There's a lot of graphics in here. But there's also things like to help you out, to clarify your monthly budget. And then there's some other stuff in here. Of course, there's the holiday horror story. You should buy this book. I mean, I'd appreciate it. I mean, it's cool stuff. I even put a January 22 calendar that you could take to a copy shop and blow it up, put it on your wall, and it get organized. Food items, non-food items. In other words, what I'm trying to do is help people, and this is even the thing you can see there, that thing I showed you a couple of times. You will own nothing. That's that great reset stuff, and you will be happy. But like I'm trying to explain is that the great reset has already occurred. And people don't know it. It's really timely. I even have like the pictures of this stuff in here. But like, the goofy thing like this, likes makes me happy, dislikes make me unhappy. It may seem like a stupid, silly thing. Then what? Amazon.com. Then what? Tony Caravan. Look it up. It's $9.95. Grab the book. Get a couple of them. There's a couple of weird typos in there, which I guess I should post on my website. There's probably a way I could go in and change the thing because these are on demand printed, I believe. But I'm kind of afraid to do it because this Apple computer's old and I don't know. I might, when I upload it, maybe I'll just like destroy the book. And it came out so nice that it's sad that there's a couple of weird things in there, like a 2 that is in the wrong place, or a typo where it says like, what was it? It's like I, comma, instead of the word do, because my hand's on the typewriter keyboard. The I is next to the O and the comma is next to, you know what I mean? And I accidentally, and for some reason, these spell checkers, they love to change things all the time on you, but somehow it missed this thing. This makes no sense, right? It should have like been flagged. So I don't know. Suddenly it's hot in this place. I've got 2 layers on. I put a Hawaiian shirt on over my regular shirt, which I gotta take off now because this is not a 2-layer day with the heat on right now. This is a nice shirt though. I've had this for a long time. You are a wage slave. You are a serf. The problem with these long sleeve shirts, and this has the Elvis collar on, which I don't know if that adds to this link of air much type of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I try to get this point across, and I do it in my books, and I've done it in a couple of them, some of the recent ones, that I try to steer people into a way of getting a handle on their life and understanding this idea. You don't want to be a wage slave. You want to figure out a budget. You want to figure out how you're living, where you're living, what you're doing, and how you can like live within your means and have a good quality of life is what I'm saying. And being a wage slave for 40 years, and it's really sad, and people today don't understand it. Of course, we quite well, there's a very good possibility that this is what the Earth's going to look like in like 20 some years. It has nothing to do with climate change, right? Global warming, climate crisis, whatever they want to call it. This has to do with the cycles of the sun. And you've got to watch Suspicious Observers or the Diehold Foundation videos. I'm not going to repeat what guys have that have 20 videos or 50, who've dug deep into this and have the science behind it and show the papers and, connected all the dots. Right. Go to the sources. But let's assume that doesn't happen and we, like I said, we dodge that bullet. And life goes on, right? And so unlike the, 100 years passes. But France isn't like this right now in many spots. Who knows what that particular beach, all those grand hotels, I don't think they're there, right? And that was 100 years ago. And those people were having fun and they had a good quality of life. You should seek out that video. France, 1923. Yeah, YouTube. I think this stuff is starting to soak in, but I think I might have put too much on it. It's really a slow process. Unless the humidity is gradually rising or something. It just feels like there's oiliness. I'm going to use today, since it's going to be warm, I'm going to go out in my backyard and I'm going to saw this tree, a couple of branches off of this tree that this neighbor's been freaking out over, and that it's getting too tall anyway. I don't know if if I need to borrow a ladder from a friend or if I can do it myself. Hopefully I could do it myself. If I can hang on it like a monkey, I'll do it myself. The problem is I'm hoping that it's rained enough and enough leaves have come off, because birds used to hang out it and it crapped on the leaves and stuff. And I don't want to have all that bird crap, be climbing this tree and getting that stuff on, even though I'll have gloves and whatever clothes I have on, I'll come right in the house afterward and throw them in the washer. Go up, take a shower, and then after the shower, throw my towel in the washer, do laundry, and that's my day today. And then watch a frickin' movie. You know what I watched last night? This has nothing to do with anything. But like I say, this is a morning vlog. I watched, because I had lost touch with Harry Potter, right? Years and years and years ago, I watched Harry Potter's, maybe the first or the second. And apparently HBO Max, which I think I had a trial subscription, which I canceled, which expires today or tomorrow. So I thought I'd look through and see what they had. And they had the entire Harry Potter thing. And I didn't realize they were up to 7 or something. So I watched part 1 and part 2 of 7, which was the end, I guess, of Harry Potter. That was interesting. It was something to watch. I mean, it wasn't, it was just what it is. It was mindless entertainment, I guess, something to watch. At least it was a movie, And I think, and it did, unlike the other day on Apple. So it must be, maybe Apple servers are worse, or whatever. But it didn't, I think it might have just paused once briefly. It wasn't like that Apple thing that 4 or 5 times. It was crazy. But that has nothing to do with anything. But your quality of life. So, you're a wage slave. And what I was getting at is that if we dodge this bullet of this frozen wasteland that happens after this solar catastrophe, right? Because it's caused by the sun releasing its outer shell, which basically wreaks havoc on the planet Earth and Mars and the moon and other planets. And so, Elon Musk going to Mars isn't going to save humanity, so he's out of touch with reality, right? And all technology, and if there's a lesser version of this, see, everything's backwards. So it's this would be like alfalfa from you remember the when you're a kid, alfalfa. So that's a completely different look. It's weird that you could actually just do one thing with your hair, right? And you could suddenly be a completely different character. The parting of the hair, right? It's weird. Yeah, we'll keep it like that. It was starting to get in my eyes though. But what I'm, excuse me. So say we dodge this bullet and it doesn't happen. And you're a wage slave. Okay. Well, somebody who's in their 20s and they're not going to be able to retire until they're close to 70 to get what we call Social Security, even if it even would exist, 50 years from now, right? 50 years from now, right? Because it's already like 66.6, for some people. So I think if you're like 20 years old, let's see, we'll look this up just to deal with this absurdity of, I'm trying to deal with the absurdity of life, collapse to dystopia. I'm looking up a window, so it looks weird. When can a 25-year-old retire on Social Security? See if that's like somehow fine. What age can you get Social Security? No, let's see. What age can you draw full Social Security? Retirement age and benefit reduction. Let's see here. Okay, here's Social Security. If you were born 1960 and later, let's see here. Right. Full retirement and age 62 benefits by year. That's not it. Full retirement age. Let's see. Retirement estimator. Retirement age calculator. If you were born, they just have this 1960 and later. Your full retirement. Okay, let's see. They're hiding this. Benefits by year of birth. This is like SSA.gov. They're not like, they're hiding this from people. This is new too, because they I think they're planning to get rid of this thing. Because they have like 1960s and later, you could retire at age 67. But I remember seeing something that showed that these people can't retire until like 70. But anyway, let's just forget about that. I'm sorry for looking like a weirdo because I was looking at something else. Okay, let's just say 67. So you're 20, you're 27 years old, right? And that's 40 years, all right? But if you're 27, so say if you were like somebody who worked from the time they were 17, right? Which is a true wage slave, somebody who doesn't go to college, so you worked 50 years, say. You can't retire until you're 67 years old. But say you went to college, farted around for a while, and by 27 you got a job, which is probably what people are doing today. Okay? But that's like they're saying 1960 and later. They're not really talking about somebody born in 1990, right? Which would be like 30 years ago or so. Which I'm pretty sure I saw on some chart somewhere they couldn't retire even until they're like 71 or something like that, or 72. But let's stick with the 67. Now, the type of problem, by the time you're 67 years old and you worked, say, 40 years from 27 onward as a wage slave, you didn't make that much money, okay? So you paid into Social Security. So chances are, maybe you had along the way somewhere you had a decent job, for a little stretch. you're only going to get, what are you going to get? $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a month, Social Security. You're 67 years old now. Basically, your body starts falling apart. Right? And you don't know what kind of systems are going to be in place 40 years from now. Right? What kind of so-called safety net type of thing. It's like even with this child benefit thing that we talked about yesterday, where these people are probably going to start popping out kids because they're worth $300 a month a pop. Right? I mean, think about it. If you were happily married, or say you're a single mom and you weren't even married, right? But you were sexually active or whatever, or you didn't mind getting pregnant, and you just didn't want to play the game and be a wage slave, well, you would find someone that doesn't have a sexually transmitted disease and get pregnant. If you didn't mind it, going through that, especially towards the end, it's very uncomfortable, and, and then you got to go through labor and give birth and all that. But once you give birth, the government is going to give you $300 a month for that child. So if you decide, I'm not going to work, all right, I'm just going to live on the government teat, right? And I'm going to have 3 or 4 kids. You're basically going to get like $900 to $1,200. And even as those kids get over the age of 5 or so, you get $250 a kid. You're going to have like $1,000 for 17 years cash unless this program gets reversed. Right? Because up until they're 17 years old. And then if one of your daughters, or if you have a daughter or something, is going to look at that life that you have, and she's going to decide at 17, well, I think I'm going to get pregnant, because that'll be, and I'll live at the poverty level, because I'll get $300 a month for that first kid. Maybe I'll have another one. That'll be $600. And then I'll get free housing on welfare, free medical, free food, and various other benefits, which I rattled off on yesterday's show. So that's, okay, so now you have to say, okay, so what kind of quality of life is that? Well, it depends on the individual. See, for some people watching this, they might go, well, I don't know, that seems weird. But what you have to understand is I live below the poverty level. I bought a house right around the time that I saw the writing on the wall. The last thing I was doing was I was had my own business. Not I did. I was publishing this dining and entertainment magazine in this other city nearby, not that far away, place where you can't get a train, even though they given $23 million to this town, right? But they could hook a train up, but they're not going to do that, because the train station in that town that I used to live, they turned into like the train station restaurant, right? See, that's the ploy and the plan they do. They don't want people. They want us isolated in our own cubicles. This is the thing. And whether it's the thing that won't go away, or they come up with something like climate crisis or some other reason or some other thing, we are not going to be free, right? You are not free. That's another one of my songs, right? I forget which one that is, right? But I'm looking at my songs here. This is one, this is a cool one. Like, that's a neat one. But I don't know if You Are Not Free. What song was that? I can't find it.
I'm tired of politicians, reporters, and the so-called news.
Yeah, that's my stuff. Explore it, learn it. It's neat stuff to listen to. But anyway, to get back into this thing. All right. I got my hands like kind of folded under my arms, which is putting that stuff on this shirt. But this is the last day for this shirt, the Elvis shirt. Like I said, I'm going to go outside and do that today. Chop down some branches. All right, so quality of life. You have to decide on your quality of life. If you're making six figures, it doesn't matter. Okay, that's the middle class now. The middle class is like anywhere from 80 plus thousand to like six figures, to 120,000, or in the six figures, working your way up. You know, the elite are billionaires now, but also are multi-millionaires. Like making even seven figures, making $1.2 million today isn't really a lot. Some people like think, that's a lot of money. You're a millionaire. No, you're not really. Because you're probably living in a house, all right, and you have a mortgage. That's why I have that thing in my book I showed you, the budget, where you have to look, really look at your budget to consider, to make life decisions. Remember, do you want to do what you're doing? It might be fine and dandy now. It's like that show, that movie, The Office, that humorous thing. It's like, yeah, you might have some buddies at work and you're having fun. And on the weekends, you're doing some stuff and that's all cool. And, do it, have fun. You're 27, you do that for 5 or 6 years or whatever. Yeah. Play around, live life, enjoy. Life's to enjoy. Quality of life's what it's all about. But ultimately, you have to start looking at it from the big picture and make decisions. And say, like, how long is this thing going to go on? And what you'll find is that as you get slightly older with each year, even when you're young, you'll notice that, a couple of your friends start getting girlfriends, boyfriends, depending on who they are, what goes on. They some get married, some move away, get different jobs, and unless you do this, and you might do the same or whatever, and suddenly it's not that party scene anymore. It's not that fun. It's not that, whatever. And then it's the honeymoon couple of years, if you fell in love or you've got a relationship and you're spending those first couple of years, making house. Maybe you've got kids and maybe you're into that thing. Maybe you don't have kids or whatever. And then unfortunately, like I say, half the people end up getting divorced. So then you're out, then you're basically like, and it starts all over. And then like that line Bill Murray in Stripes, then depression set in, right? So you have to look at your life in perspective. Enjoy the times you have. Enjoy, there's, I'm saying no party pooper. It's like, have fun while you can have fun. But, in the back of your mind, you got to think about these things. So anyway, if we dodged a bullet of this thing on the screen, which is unlikely, but let's say we do, 40 years down, you got to start thinking about stuff. So I was starting to see the writing on the wall about 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, I saw the writing on the wall 25 years ago because I've been doing shows about this stuff, songs and shows, Let's look at one of my shows.
Tony Caravan with you. The Fireside Chat. Hey, thanks for tuning in this week. I want to talk a little bit about survival. I've been getting a lot of emails and people asking what they can do to.
That was me doing a show, a webcast 20 some years ago. See, I've been at this thing. I've seen the writing on the wall. But I had some good fun along the way, But anyway, about 7 or 8 years ago, it got to the point where I saw that, hey, the party's going to be ending soon. I don't exactly know how or why or what they're going to do, but the writing was on the wall. So while I still had the chance and I had a credit rating and income, and it was a pain because I was self-employed, I had to give so many papers to get this mortgage. You know what I mean? The bankers are real pricks. But I was able to do it, and I knew I had to do it while I had that opportunity. See, you know, and I knew that I was paying $675 a month rent, just rent, and I was still paying like electric, internet, TV, you know, phone, you know, cell phone bills were much higher, you know, 8 years ago because of the competition, just the way it was. All kinds of, you know, the usual bills, food, you know, transportation. I mean, everything, you know, it's cost me a couple $1,000s a month just to live. And I was living, you know, I had a 2-bedroom apartment and stuff like that, and was running this business. And I had a lot of side benefits because I was running a dining and entertainment magazine and doing websites and stuff like that for people. So there were perks. You know, I'd go places and people would give me free meals and free drinks and all that kind of stuff. But still, I saw the writing on the wall. I go, you know, this isn't going to continue. You know, these businesses, some of these restaurants, the restaurants were already starting to close and have problems. This is even way before this thing came in. And I saw that the landscape of small business and stuff like that was changing. And that the internet was changing, and graphics and all the things that I was doing, that the big companies were starting to, you know, merge, and templates, graphic design and creatives were being replaced by templates, right? And then the cloud services were coming in. So it was like software in the cloud. So they were like this extortion where you'd have to pay a monthly fee for the software instead of, you know, I have to snooze this. Actually, I'm just going to close this. That I knew that I'm going like, you know, the cost of living is going up. And this party life, this sustainable, self-employed, you know, gig life, which a lot of people are living on now, right? That's why you see cars at all times of the day. Like, who are these people? Where do they get this money, right? Well, some of them are on the government teat now. Half of the population is almost on the government teat or on doing some kind of gig economy thing, right? But if you're in the gig economy or on the government teat, you're not paying into Social Security. And fortunately, when I was younger, I had a couple of good jobs. So I had years of paying into, consecutive years of paying into the Social Security system. Right. Which means I was guaranteed to get Social Security. All right. So I had that in my mind. I go, okay, well, I am going to get Social Security at some point. And when I do, I'm definitely going to retire at 62 for sure. Okay. But in the meantime, before I reach that age, I'm going to retire. Okay. Right. I was figuring this stuff out. And so what I did was I decided that while I had the credit cards, the credit rating, and I had some cash, right? And I had proof of, you know, documentation of income, that I was going to buy a house. And I was going to get a house in a place that was cheap, you know, tax-wise and mortgage-wise. And so I started searching. And I've told this story before, but it bears, you know, repeating. And, you know, like I say, it may be useless because if we dodge a bullet, but if there's still 24 years left, at least, you know, if someone takes it, you know, if you have this opportunity at least you can enjoy a decent quality of life for 20 some years, assuming you have good health. And I've had some bouts with bad health here and there, but still, I'm here today, right? So I was lucky enough. I looked at a number of houses, and I found an area on the outskirts of a town that had resources, that I bought a house for under $20,000. And I've said this before, my taxes, mortgage, and insurance on this house are under $200 right now. And I have a fixed mortgage. So if interest rates go up, I still pay the same amount. Now, the insurance and taxes, well, they'll probably go up a little. All right. But, and I'm already my mortgage is already half paid because I got a 15-year mortgage, and I think it's been about 7 years or so. So it's almost halfway done paying for this frickin' place. Right. And so my rent, because, your mortgage is like your rent. So I was renting $675 a month. Well, suddenly I got a house, all right, and my mortgage, taxes and insurance, which you have to factor those into it, was only $200. So I had a drop of $400. I said was saving $475 right off the top. So think about that. And, there are houses for like under $20,000 or in the $20,000 range all around. Like even if you got a house for $30,000 or $40,000 and you could get a 30-year mortgage, your payment still would be like $300 or something weird like that or something. Yet if you try to rent a place, you're going to pay twice, or depending on where you are, you could pay 10 times that if you're in New York City. That's why so many people the smart people are leaving the big cities, because they're going places and they're realizing there are houses. You don't need to build yourself a stick house, brand new stick house, or go to some development somewhere, brand new homes that are selling for $185,000 or $250,000 or worse, right? Or even buying a house for $100,000. Go somewhere, buy a fixer upper. This house was move-in ready for under $20,000. I did some painting. The backyard was a mess. I had to clean that up. But I did a lot of painting and sanding. The front porch looked like crap, which is probably one of the reasons why it wasn't selling, because it didn't have curb appeal. But I had the foresight to look at it, finally. I bought it online. I used that Zillow thing, found it. I didn't go through the front door of this house until I had the keys at settlement. I just saw pictures of the inside. And I had a realtor guy take a couple extra pictures because I had some questions about a few things. But I got this house for I ended up paying only $15,000 or something for this house because they just wanted to get rid of it. It was on the market. And I have 2 bedrooms, a full bath upstairs, like I say, a half bath or a WC downstairs, a kitchen and this front room, a porch, covered porch. I'm right on the main street. Next to me is a doctor. Across the street is like a hardware store. I have a crazy lady who lives next door, but that's another story. So what? It's an 8-foot fence between us, and I raised it to 10 feet at one point towards the back where I like to hang out. So she can't even, nobody could bother me. And, and then I grow, and it's a south-facing yard as a bonus, so I have a garden, produces like 6 months worth of food for me, and I'm out there getting a suntan, vitamin D3, and all that stuff you've heard before if you watch these shows. So, and my utility bills have gone down, and I'm living at the poverty level, okay? So that gives me free health care, food, and some assistance on my heating and stuff. All right. Now I paid into that because I worked my whole life. It's like I'm not like some welfare type of person. Some people look at that and go like, it's like, no, man. I was a mover and shaker, man. I worked in New York, LA, DC, Philly, I've been around the world. I've done all kinds of stuff. I've innovated technology, been involved in all kinds of crazy things. I contribute during my life, I contributed to this planet, to this world, and this country. I actually was a person who made a contribution. I worked in key areas for key people. I helped, I mentored people. I worked for university. I did things. I ran radio stations. I ran an ad agency. I did things. I nurtured people into business, all kinds of stuff. Published magazines. I did things. Entertainment, managed talent, helped people. Right? So I get my contribution, to the average person or the average wage slave, I actually contributed. The fact that I lived and walked this earth, I feel I've made it a better place during my life. Right? Did I live a perfect life? Am I some kind of sainted character to deserve some kind of award? No. I went through the self-centered stage. I was in my own world at times. And, like anything else, I've been divorced twice, and I've had some good relationships fail, which were probably mostly my fault by just going through that stage of self-centeredness. So no, I wasn't perfect, but the fact of the matter is I've endeavored, and definitely over the past 25 years or so, I've endeavored to make the world I live in a better place, through my words and deeds. Okay? And that's why I write books, that's why I do music, and that's why I do these shows. I don't make any money on this show. It's demonetized. And as much as I'd like you to buy a shirt and hoodies and my songs and my books, some reason none of you people do it. And they're all out there to help you. And I don't like the commission I would make on the sales of any of this stuff would be like literally measured in, cents, less than $1 and type of stuff. So it's like, no, I live below the poverty line. But I was able to do that and get myself in a situation where I could afford to live under the poverty line and have a quality of life. So I make less than $1,000 a month. And I live for practical purposes like a normal human being. Nobody knows the best. People would have no idea if I wouldn't talk about this. But I share this intentionally to say that if you feel you're caught in a rat race or you're a wage slave, it's time you look. And in my books and in my songs and stuff, I tell the story, and in these videos, I try to share this stuff with you to say it's possible for you to get out of the rat race, and it's possible for you to live a better quality of life and focus, on just enjoying being alive, right? Instead of being a wage slave. Wage slavery could be fun. When I used to have jobs down the shore when I was really, really young, outside of high school and in between college, summer jobs and stuff, who cared, Didn't care what you made. As long as you had enough money to go hang out at the bar, go out with girls, get yourself, just live and have fun and play, right? That's all that mattered. And, that's part of life and growing up. Why not? Right? Play is an integral part of our development process and part of life. You see the animals, they play, right? There's nothing wrong with playing. Society sometimes, makes it like as if, oh, you got to get, you got to be a wage slave. You can't play. But at the same time, you can't be a bum either. Like I say, you got to make some kind of contribution. You may not contribute as much as I have or contribute as much as some classic person. There are people out there that really contribute to the betterment of life for everyone. But you can make a small contribution. I think that's part of our purpose here is to, make the world a better place than it was before we were born and when we're gone, that type of thing. In a small way, in whatever small way. It could be a very tiny way, but at least that should be it. Not to be destructive, negative, right? That kind of thing. So it's possible to break the chains of wage slavery and quit the rat race. But you've got to plan it ahead. You got to get out while the getting's good before it all falls down. And that's the key thing. Because it's too late when you're out on the street, or, you're broke because nobody's going to talk to you. And this idea of you will own nothing and you will be happy is not realistic. Right? But at the same level, when I talk about these people now that are getting these, $300 to pop out a kid, I really don't care. But that doesn't really faze me. I don't feel, like I say, jealousy is a stupid thing. So some people are like, and people like, so what? Let it happen. It happened. The Great Reset's already happened. What you have to do is figure a way to survive and navigate through this Great Reset that it occurred already and is over and done. Not some kind of Save America thing and think you're going to reverse that. You can't reverse something like that. Right? Nothing gets reversed. Like I say, it's like, when you look back at the Patriot Act and things like that. Whenever these major things they do pass, they never go away, right? So, it's a matter of navigating within the world in its present form. And its present form is a corporatocracy, all right? And so this Davos set, this class of billionaires, these rulers of the world, self-appointed rulers of the world, have decided to change the nature of life and create this neo-feudalism or whatever the heck it is. Well, you got to figure a way to navigate in there so you can maintain some kind of quality of life. And you have to say, so if you're in this situation where you're like, well, I don't want to live like that dude, or I don't want to be like some woman that pops out a few kids and, living on $1,000 a month and the government teat. Okay, well, I want to travel. I want to do this. Yeah, well then do it. There's something like 11 million jobs that are probably all six figures, or high five figures, or six figures available. So take one of those jobs, work hard, and travel. When I was younger, I traveled. I traveled around the world. I lived in all the major cities for a couple of years. Lived and worked in, like I said, in D.C., New York, Philly, L.A. I lived in all those cities for several years, had a good life, good income, and experienced, the best, that was, this country had to offer. So yeah, if you want to do that, do it. All right. But always keep in the back of your mind, I say, barring the fact that we, dodge a bullet on this, frozen wasteland dystopia that seems like it's coming our way. Make sure you've got something you're thinking in terms of like, okay, what do I do? Because you're not going to be able to Social Security, you're not going to be able to retire until you're 67 or older. Like, I don't know why they're hiding that from the Social Security page. It used to be up. But definitely you won't be able to retire until you're 67 or something. And and how are you going to live? You think you're going to be living in some beach house? Right? or I lived in Capitol Hill in a townhouse that had a swimming pool in it. I lived in a penthouse in New York City. All right, top floor, and I was able to walk up and stand on the roof and drink a Heineken looking out over the lights and look at the Twin Towers back then. Right? I lived in Malibu and Beverly Hills, but I lived in Malibu in California, LA, and I had a clear ocean view, right? And watch the sunset from a hot tub on my deck. But I knew that wasn't where I was going to retire, because I wasn't a billionaire. I wasn't even a multi-millionaire, and that would have been unsustainable for me. But I certainly enjoyed it while I lived there. All right. But I knew retirement wasn't possible. So the idea is my life was to experience, like the old beer commercial, grab all the gusto, that life has to offer. And then think about what you're going to do when you so-called settle down and retire. And if you're in some kind of relationship, hopefully you're with someone who sees things the way you see things. Right? Because ultimately it's going to come down to the simple life. And the older you get, the more simpler life is and the less money you actually need. See, that's the thing. Unless you put yourself into a situation where you're like, it's unsustainable. So when I saw the writing on the wall, if I would have kept publishing these magazines, doing internet websites, creating certain apps and stuff like that, if I would have kept doing that, see, I started to notice that there were companies now coming up that were creating apps so that anyone could almost create an app. You can pay, a fee, and, the apps were like a template almost. I saw the templates starting to creep into all the Adobe software and that it was going to the cloud, right? I saw the restaurants were closing, right? The party scene wasn't the way it was. Bars weren't lines around the thing. And that was a college town. So I was starting to see that, life was changing, right? Like I say, this is before this lockdown thing. This is years before that. A lot of people don't know that. It was already in the beginnings of that, the seeds of that were already being planted. This was just the clincher. That's why I kind of still think it's a bioweapon. But that's neither here nor there. So I knew that there was no way in hell that if I was losing advertisers and was going to start losing design business, website business, and that kind of stuff, that my annual, excuse me, it's hard to talk nonstop for close to 2 hours. Try it sometime. Anyway, so, I saw the writing on the wall. And I said, now's the time for me to plan, my escape so I could get out of this and get down to something that's manageable. Right? Because it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse in the coming years. And we're still at that point. It's getting worse. It's still getting worse for people. In other words, we have inflation now. So inflation is not going to get better. Forget what you see on TV. The price of gas and stuff like that may fluctuate here and there, but ultimately they're trying to eliminate fossil fuels. And, this is another thing. What the heck are people in the North going to do? Because it's a carbon-based civilization, and that's the only way to heat. Right? And like I said, from the past several shows and before that even, in many areas, 25% of electricity is still generated by coal. That's a lot. That's a quarter of it. So you're driving a Tesla vehicle you're basically 25% of that battery power is produced by coal. So you're driving a car that runs 25% on coal and the rest on like natural gas or what they call fossil fuels. And that natural gas might have been come from fracking. So like you're driving around, hey, look at me. I got a Tesla. I'm environmental. I'm green as can be. Look how green I'm Mr. Green Jeans. Yeah, you're driving a car that your batteries are charged by fracking and coal. You hypocrite, right? And these billionaires driving these things. And you're flying your private jet to a coal which is carbon-based and is one of the worst emitters of your so-called greenhouse gases. Nose is itchy. And yeah, and you billionaires all with these beach homes who are saying that ocean levels are going to rise, but like Obama just bought one a couple of years ago, right on the coast. It's like, you hypocrite. I mean, and people don't see that. Well, why would you buy a $15-20 million home right on the coast if the ocean levels are going to rise in a couple of years, right? They're hypocrites, but they're obvious. You could see through them. They're transparent. So the whole thing's a joke. It's not even possible. It's not sustainable. It's not realistic. And besides, CO2 is a trace gas. Methane, they're trace gases, right? They're really insignificant when it comes down to it. I mean, there's a slight contribution, man-made contribution to climate, but it's so slight. It's nothing in comparison, to the sun and the cycles of the grand cycles of solar activity, right? The sun is what gives us heat. The sun heats up, and our magnetic field, which has been weakening consistently, is allowing cosmic rays in, which is causing things like La Palma to, is heating up that lava, which in turn is pushing this ash into the sky, which ultimately is going to cool the planet. And, this is going to be the future one way or another. And if they eliminate more of these pipelines and drilling and stuff like that, this is going to be the U.S. This might not be St. Petersburg, Moscow, and Berlin, because the Russians got oil and they're using oil for heating oil. France, they're mostly nuclear, right? So they saw the writing on the wall. So they got green with nuclear power. The Arabs, they've got OPEC. They've got all their oil, right? And their fossil fuels to get through this. Places like Venezuela are going to end up recovering because it's such an oil-rich country. I still say the U.S. is going to do some kind of deal with Venezuela if they haven't already. Some kind of dirty deal we're not aware of, right? And China's got arrangements with everybody to get coal, and they're building coal plants. So every PR thing that comes out of the Communist Chinese Party is a lie. And India is a developing nation, and they're not going to just abandon their whole country and allow it to collapse. Right? They're trying to move forward. So this whole thing is a farce, right? That climate summit is a farce. It's like, it's real theater, theater of the absurd. So you got to figure yourself out and look out for yourself and those you love. If you have people who you love, if you don't, if you're like me and you just live here with a cat, you got to survive, and everybody has a different comfort level, a certain quality of life that they like and it's good, works for them. But that's up to you. And I try to do my best to give you some tools so that you can figure that stuff out on your own. I don't have all the answers, and I don't definitely have the answers for your individual life. Okay, but if you read my books, listen to my songs, and watch all these videos, you're going to find guidance and ideas, But in the end, it's up to you. And I say the same thing as I say about health matters, investigate stuff. The internet's like bullshit. Every time we try to look something up on the internet, it's like, it takes you down some weird path. I was watching like that Lex Fridman guy, he's Mr. MIT. That's such a smug jerk, right? I mean, he's had a couple interesting guests on, and I've actually sat through watching a couple hours of his show, but it's mainly because of the guests, not him. And some guy was trying to call the sci-fi guy, it's like a current one that's up there, was like trying to call out the idea that internet is useless now and Google. And he was like defending it somehow. And I'm like, how could you defend Google? Like even today, when I got the La Palma stuff, the Spanish site, I had to go to the second page in search. That should be the first page, right? Not all this other stuff, either paid or weird stuff or stuff that's trying to push a narrative in a different way or whatever's going on. Like I said, what was it, CBS or ABC, one of those networks? I don't know which one, so don't quote me. But one of the major networks basically had La Palma volcano on in the country of Spain. Not like it, they didn't even know it was an island. So they had to take that back. Imagine that. And this is, you're watching the news and you're paying cable. Why even waste your money on cable or Dish TV or something like that? It's useless. Direct TV. Those people, I'm still fighting people at Direct TV. So anyway, that's that. So I wish you all the best. Quality of life's what it's all about. People 100 years ago lived pretty well. You could live. People 2,000 years ago lived pretty well. Life is weird. This is what the news is. It's much ado about nothing. Bunch of cartoon characters saying nothing in speech balloons. All right? The sun's what it's all about. All right? And it looks like it's going to be pretty decent weather today across these former United States. All right? Bitcoin's going down. You might want to get my song, the worst Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa song ever written or sung. Add it to your collection, your holiday music collection. Ah! Anyway. Take care. Go to rockflux.com or TonyCaravanLive.com. It's the same website, technically. And scroll down, and you'll find links to my book. Get the print edition, because you really want the print edition, because there's stuff in there that you can write in and stuff, use and copy and stuff. Don't be a cheapo. It's only $9.95. My shirts are all around $20 or less, and they're great shirts. Great solar stuff. There's stuff you can get there that's going to help you out this winter and through power failures. And it's not all solar. You don't need the solar panels. You need the power packs. You need the NOAA radio. I got some solar Christmas lights for sale on there too. I just get a commission on this stuff. Anyway, do all that stuff. All right?
Elvis has left the building. Thank you and good night.